Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. And as usual, one more time I invite you all that haven't subscribed yet to go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can get my videos on your feed every day. Now let's get started with today's main story. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user She Is the Pink Killer. How do I, 28 female, convince my boyfriend, 28 male, to seek professional help? We've been best friends since forever. We got together last year. He's been through a lot and was already starting to show the cracks before he started dating a self-help guru and holistic healer, and she completely broke him. After that, he needs some cult deprogramming or maybe an exorcism just to consider talking to a professional. I know what you'll say. You'll think I'm saying this out of jealousy, but I've been his shoulder to cry on since he first started dating and through a past failed engagement. I don't see her as his ex. I see her as a very dangerous person who did very bad things for his mental health. Another thing that will become important for the story is that we have been roommates since we turned 18, and once we got our adult jobs, we bought a house together. Here comes the hard part. He lost both his parents within a year. He was devastated, but life went on. 2 years after that, he was caught in a freak accident. There was a fire in a department store and he got trampled because he bent down to help a girl up. He had a brain injury and a broken elbow, insignificant compared to the brain injury, but I'm mentioning it because it was significant to her. He was in an induced coma for a week because of brain swelling and spent months in rehab. Now he's fully recovered. But when he was with her, he still had some issues like cluster headaches and he couldn't keep track of time. After the accident, he became very spiritual, which was a huge personality change. Basically, he wanted to find the meaning of life. He was also acting a bit manic, and I was begging him to speak to someone, but he chose to go to a spiritual retreat in India instead. There, he met a local girl, a self-proclaimed spiritual healer. When they came back home, he joined her program and they started dating. The first thing she did was convince him our house had bad energy, so he moved to her apartment within weeks. 2 months in and he was paying the rent and the utilities and sponsoring her solo trips around the world. The irony is that he had his own house. His parents made their fortune by renting out properties that he inherited, yet he was still paying rent for a crummy apartment. She quit her job to focus on him and convince him he's the most damaged person she's ever worked with. At first, he seemed happy, but then the fights started. He spent more time crashing at our place than at her apartment. I kept my mouth shut for a very long time. He didn't have any cognitive issues from the injury. He's a grown man, and I thought he knew what he was doing. Months in, he told me that she cut him off all medication and convinced him the pain of effing cluster headaches is making him mentally stronger. While he was back home, this behemoth of a man would be curled up on the floor and sobbing, even with medication, and she was telling him to breathe through it. I didn't spend much time with her, but every single time we got together, I witnessed some disturbing things. One time, he hugged her, and she reminded him to use his other arm. I joked that I'm OCD about that too. I have to be on the left side when walking with someone. She said no, that scar is disgusting and she doesn't want it on her skin. We were all a bit tipsy, and yes, this health-obsessed vegan was drinking like a fish. So I went on and on about scars being the marks of survivors, and I said I love that scar in particular because it takes away the attention from the injury that almost killed him. The very next day, she took an artsy photo of his arm while he was sleeping and posted it all over her social media with what I had said as a caption. He had something to say about that and crashed back at ours again. A few weeks later, he was begging me to go out with them again cause we're everything he has and he wants us to be cordial. I always was. She was the one with all the remarks and backhand compliments. I agreed and it turned into a crap show. First, she mocked him cause he couldn't remember if they did something and if it was this or last week. Then he told this funny story about beating up a kid who bullied me in elementary school. It all clicked for her. She said she realized that he was weak because he was living with another weak person, and she was having such a hard time fixing him because my victimhood was imprinted on him. She told him he had to cut contact with me if he wanted to be a better person. And there we go. Isolation. She went on, and we just kept staring at her with our jaws on the floor. She said he was the one who got trampled in the fire because he was the weakest person there. Then she switched to his parents and dared say the universe took them to snap him out of this charmed life and make him stronger. I finally opened my mouth and she got violent. She was escorted by security and he came back home. He didn't even need to go to her apartment to pack because he had only a toothbrush and a few pieces of clothing left there. That definitely woke him up and he seemed to be getting back to normal. In the back of my mind, I was thinking maybe this experience did something because the man I knew was back. They broke up 2.5 years ago and he started dating again, some 2 years ago. I realized I'm in love with him and probably have been for a very long time. I didn't say anything, as per usual. 11 months ago, we were binge watching some TV shows and fell asleep on the couch. We woke up all cuddled up and he told me his relationships never worked out because he compared everyone else to me. We kissed and everything was perfect for 7 months. Then, 4 months ago, one of our dogs tipped him and he bent his ankle. There was a minor fracture on the side of his foot and he was in a soft cast for a month, only because he's freakishly tall and there's a lot of weight on the foot. He was fully mobile but refused to leave the house and even started working from home. He refused to take out the trash or let the dogs out during the day because someone might see him. And just like that, he snapped back into the person that she created. Once the cast was off, he started wearing long-sleeved shirts in public to hide the surgery scar. He started freaking out that the scars on his head will be visible once his hairline starts receding. He became incredibly submissive. We never fight. We always resolve our issues by talking. But now, if we disagree about something, he instantly bends to my will. He waits on me hand and foot and showers me with gifts. If I say I need to do something but I'm too lazy to get up, he jumps up and does it for me. He constantly asks me if I need help with anything. If I'm hungry or thirsty, how can he serve me? He has a mini panic attack when someone looks at him on the street. And people do because he's very handsome. I cannot describe how insecure he feels. He's refusing to seek any kind of help. He got a nasty bug that dragged on forever and he never went to see a doctor. Once again, he's convinced he's weak and a perpetual victim and distanced himself from almost everyone he knows. He's convinced I'm on my way out the door and I'm running out of ideas to make him realize this is a lifetime deal for me. I keep telling him he needs to speak to someone. He had a lot of unresolved issues before he met his ex and she only worsened the situation. It's completely normal to see a therapist, but he thinks seeking help is a sign of weakness. I convinced him to start couples therapy, and our therapist is trying to get him to seek individual counseling, but he flat out refuses. I don't know what else to do to convince him. He never even got a diagnosis. Threatening to leave him would work, but I don't want it to come to that. Wow, that self-proclaimed healer slash gold-digging scammer really did a number on him, and she was doing really well until she messed with his parents. That's, I think, what, snapped him up, just like you said. And I absolutely agree with you that threatening to leave him might work, might get him to counseling, but it would be under coercion. So yeah, it's gonna make a weird power dynamic between the two of you that could ultimately affect the relationship in a negative way. Now, there's a couple of things you said on your next to last paragraph that I think is where the key lies. One, that he sees himself as a perpetual victim because of how this woman just broke him down. That he thinks you're running out the door and that he thinks that seeking help is a sign of weakness. So based on those three things, I would sit him down and tell him, first of all, you have no plan of running out the door. You love him and you want to stay with him and you want to help him through this victimhood that he's carrying, and that seeking help is actually a sign of strength, because it takes a lot to recognize you have a problem that you want to work through. That seeking help to be better, to heal yourself, is actually something that is admirable and nothing to be ashamed of. It's probably going to take some time for you to get him there, but the goal is to get him to talk to a counselor and then he can start that work. Because I don't think that you alone could help heal what this other woman broke. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? How would you get him to start seeing a counselor? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. AC says, can you tell him it takes a lot of strength and braveness to be willing to open up to a stranger like he would need to in therapy? If he's worried that he's weak and he'll lose you for being weak, maybe you can convince him that going to therapy is a sign of strength. And if not, then he's basically saying you're weak and I wouldn't want to date someone who's that judgmental of me. And OP responds, I tried that angle, it almost worked. Box of Spirits says, I think the couples therapy is a great way of opening him up to it. I guess you two have continued to going to couples therapy? If so, now I'm only 17, so take everything with a grain of salt because you two are a lot further through life than me, and what has been said above is a lot to go through. I have been through my struggles. I think you should maybe try, if you haven't, to go to therapy by yourself and have him come along so he can see you go through with it, so that if you do it, he can do it. How I have helped some friends in the past is to open them up some more, help as much as I can, and try to find each point of the mental issue. You seem to know a ton already, and opening him up to talk doesn't seem too hard, knowing your past. And OP responds, don't disregard your age or experience. Being younger than us doesn't mean you know or have been through less. And yes, that was the whole idea of couples counseling. I've been sitting there like a log for 2 sessions now. His past issues are the main focus, but he doesn't seem to be making any progress and our counselor can't diagnose him. At least I cracked that door open. Anyway, bouncing this off strangers helped me figure out how to approach it. We'll see if it works. Otoneur says, you can offer him to help him get help, but you can't force it. Telling him that going to therapy is a sign of strength rather than a sign of weakness. And OP responds, it doesn't work. The damage she did is too deep. She got a hold of him when he was at his lowest and convinced him that exact sentence is a lie that shrinks say to take your money, while she was living life and traveling the world with his money. She has the same opinion for veterinarians and all kinds of pharmaceuticals. I'm a cancer survivor and she called me insane for going through chemo instead of trying natural remedies. Actually, I can use this to remind him the things she stands against saved my life. Maybe he'll realize she was wrong about other things too. Alright, well, the community was probably on the same line of trying to get him to break this, therapy is for the weak kind of mentality. And OP apparently tried that and it almost worked, and maybe she just needs to budge a little bit more. But she seems to have an idea of how to get him there. So let's move on with the update to see if that happened. But before that, if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to click that like button or subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now, let's move on with the update. Right after posting, I got in touch with a cult expert. Our counselor had suggested that off the record. He wasn't part of a cult, but the expert agreed that he needed some high complexity deprogramming. We were sure he wouldn't agree to talk to him, so he advised me how to approach this just to open that door. Told me to be stern and try to discredit his ex, the self-help guru. To discredit the BS that she fed him. So I sat him down and we had a very hard conversation. It was actually a monologue that dragged on for what felt like hours. At points, it felt like he would fall apart, but I kept going. Last night, I reminded him he got that scar on his elbow because he nearly died saving someone's life, and she turned that into something shameful. Ages ago, I had stage 3 melanoma. She all but called me a moron for going through surgery and chemo instead of trying natural remedies. She stands against the treatment that saved my life. For all we know right now, she might be convincing someone they can cure cancer with herbs, like she was making him go through cluster headaches without any medication. She's dangerous and did very bad things for his mental health. She had him convinced that only strong people seek help is a lie fed to us by shrinks because they want our money. I reminded him that she said he was the most damaged person in the world and quit her job to focus solely on him while spending most of the time away from him traveling off his pocket. He almost lost his best friend, lost both his parents, suffered a traumatic brain injury, went through months of rehab, suffered the symptoms for another year, and managed to survive all of that. He was the strongest person I have ever met and only wanted to find some meaning in life. But she abused that and convinced him he was weak for her personal gain. I pointed out that I could turn a blind eye and keep living this charmed life, but his well-being is far more important to me. I said I wanted my best friend of over 20 years back, and that can only happen if he talks to someone. I also told him I'm afraid that if he keeps waiting on me, one day he will start resenting me, and that's the only way he could ever lose me. This conversation happened in the bedroom. He went to bed without saying a word. I wasn't sure if I was welcome there, so I fell asleep on the couch. He joined me during the night. This morning, something miraculous happened. I tripped all over myself, and there was nothing new there. He didn't jump to my rescue, didn't spit fire if I needed help with this and that. He teased me. He teased me for the first time in 4 months. We had this very bantery friendship, and it stuck when we started a relationship. When he was triggered into regressing to the person she made, he was too terrified I would leave him if he did something like that. I was beyond happy and jumped his bones. He said if this is a treat for good behavior, he will have to do it more often. He made a joke. Then he said he would speak to someone and we set up an appointment in 2 days. I offered to join him in his first session, and he said he would try to do it on his own, but might take my offer. We did start couples counseling just to warm him up to the idea. This is huge. At least this morning, he wasn't walking on eggshells out of fear I would leave him, and he finally agreed to get the help he needed. I went to work and he didn't call to ask if I needed anything. He told me what he felt like having for dinner instead of asking what I wanted and then getting everything because I couldn't decide. Even asked me if I could pick it up instead of him driving to a place I would pass anyway. This feels normal. I can't wait to get back home and enjoy him. However long this lasts, I know that very soon I will have my best friend back for good. Well, B, I gotta say, this is definitely a happy ending and on the works as well, because as you say, it's gonna take some time to get that deprogramming out of him. But if he sticks to it, I'm sure, like you say, you'll have your best friend back for good. So here's wishing both of you the best in the future, OP, and with that therapy. Take care and thank you for sharing. And now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user MontyPython12. Strong-arming me into a viewing? Fine, you won't get inside the apartment. I'm renting an apartment from a company whose renting agents are somehow all unprofessional, late, and somewhat slow. Had a plethora of issues with them throughout 10 months, but that's a story for another time. As I told my landlord, I'll be moving out. They instructed their agents to find a new tenant for the apartment. The way it worked, the agent would email me with a proposed date and time, and I would confirm that I'd be in at that time. I've got a cat, so I insisted on being present during the viewings. The agents never had keys. I think that's because the landlord's office is at the other end of the city and they can't be bothered to drive an extra hour each time there's a viewing to pick the keys up and then drop them off. So they relied on me to let them in each time. Apart from a couple of unannounced show-ups, followed by passive-aggressive emails about the messy property, all was well until a week ago. The agent emailed me saying they've got a viewing on X day. I responded by saying I've got work that day and won't be able to let them in. She simply replies, "If you won't be able to accommodate this request, I'll ask the landlord for a 24-hour notice of entry, which is legally enforceable." Okay, do that. The day comes and I get a call. "We're downstairs." "Congratulations, but I'm not home. I hope you brought keys this time." Man, I wish I could see her face then. We went back and forth for a bit and she tried to threaten me with legal action, to which I just replied that I don't object to them entering. They're unable to enter through their own negligence, and I have nothing to do with it. Naturally, I got an email from the landlord asking me to be more cooperative next time, which was promptly ignored. What does the landlord mean with more cooperative? You're being fully cooperative and they're the lazy people who don't want to get the keys. So yeah, it's all on them. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.